Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com. I'm here with UFC Melbourne, sixth round. Nick Baldwin will be joining us later. Maybe I didn't feel like waiting for him because I didn't feel like watching this card, and it went on and on and on and on. The main event: Robert Whittaker versus Derek Brunson. Now that was fun. That was 4 minutes and 7 seconds of unadulterated violence and a fine time, but it did not make up for the rest of the terrible, terrible card. Whittaker and Brunson put on a slobber knocker. Brunson hurt him early, pressed his advantage, overextended himself, got cracked. Whittaker was able to turn the tide and finish the job. Finished him up with a head kick and punches. 4 minutes, 7 seconds. It sets Whittaker up for a shot against a contender in the middleweight division, possibly Gegard Mousasi, who is going to annihilate him. Nothing I saw from Whittaker tonight made me think, except for his chin and his heart, and a little bit of power, but that is not enough to hang at the higher levels of the UFC middleweight division. It is just not. I mean, I do not see him beating Mousasi. I do not see him beating Jacare. I do not see him beating Luke Rockhold. That's just the facts. I do not see. Maybe Chris Weidman could maybe Robert Whittaker could take Chris Weidman because Chris Weidman is on a skid and just going down the toilet. But I mean, not to just bash on Whittaker, but it's just that was not a high-level performance, and Brunson did everything he could to lose that fight after tagging Whittaker early. I couldn't even see him beating Anderson Silva at this point, but definitely not Yoel Romero or Luke Rockhold or Jacare or Chris Weidman or Gegard Mousasi. Chris Weidman, Anderson Silva, maybe. He could probably beat Vitor Belfort. No way he beats Tim Kennedy. Christoph Jocko, number 11, maybe. But that's pretty much it for what I have to say about this card, because I'll run through the rest of it real quick, and it's just painfully bad garbage. Andrew Holbrook beat Jake Matthews, split decision. Only 1, 2, 3 fights didn't go to decision. That's out of something like 11 or 14. Yuck. It just goes on and on, Fox Sports. I mean, what can I say? Zuffa locked WME into this pattern and their deal with Fox Sports 1. They've got to provide content. It's a win for Fox Sports 1 because UFCs do better ratings than anything else, and they're completely miserable.
Hey,
Failed.
how's
Now,
it going?
Nick Baldwin, welcome. Now you can talk about the rest of the card. I decided this card was too painfully long to wait, so forgive me. And I talked about the main event. I felt like Whittaker and Brunson was entertaining. 4 minutes and 7 seconds of quality action and with a momentum swing. But the rest of the card was effing torture, so I don't even want to talk about it. Any highlights from anywhere on the card that you want to talk about?
I mean, as far as the main event goes, it was great. It was fantastic. It was a 4-minute barn burner. But yeah, you're right. The rest of the card, I mean, really not a whole lot stood out. We had 2 other finishes. A debutante, Alexander Volkanovski, getting the job done. That was a good performance, but not a named guy. So it's kind of hard to go back and think, oh, that's a really memorable performance. And the other was another guy that making his debut in Tyson Pedro. A good win, a first-round submission over Khalil Roundtree, but not a whole lot stood out to me other than, of course, the main event.
It was a gutsy performance by Pedro. He survived getting cracked early by Roundtree and came back and got the submission. But it was sort of a classic fight where one guy had a big power advantage in the punching and didn't know how to grapple, and the other guy just took him down, got mounted position, took his back, got the choke. So exactly. Didn't really tell us anything about Pedro. And the rest of the card, just obscure fighter from the middle of nowhere versus obscure fighter from the middle of nowhere going to decision over and over and over again. I mean, Dan Kelly had to come back against Chris Camozzi in the headliner of the preliminary card, if such a thing matters. It's just an endless sprawl on Fox Sports 1. But Camozzi at first looked like he was totally outclassing Kelly. The judoka came back, though, got a hip toss, dominated from top position. But, yeah, just garbage. Anything else you want to say about this?
I mean, quickly, though, looking back, going into this card, Did we expect anything more? I mean, we
No,
expected the main event to be great, but did we expect anything to come
I
out of
didn't
the
really
prelims?
expect it to be
I didn't.
great, and I got to school you here, kid. And welcome, Nick Baldwin. The first time on the sixth round. Round of applause, everybody. Nick Baldwin on
Actually, my
Bloody.
second time, but
I was
first
second
time
the
with
first
you.
time with me, right? Or
Yes,
did I
yes.
forget? Okay,
No,
okay.
I
So
was with Hutch, right? Yeah.
yeah, you were Hutch. Yeah, I remember that. And thanks for doing that show. But yeah, I remember that one. Um,
That was an interesting one.
Whitaker and Brunson was a sloppy, ugly slobber knocker. I mean, it was a pure sixer. It was a brawl. It was not a display of mastery or skill. And I mean, there was some
Technique.
skilled techniques executed, but no strategy whatsoever.
No, and that was more on Brunson's part. Obviously, Whitaker returned with fire, and he was the one to catch Brunson more than Brunson caught him. But Brunson was the one to come out guns a blazing. He didn't really appear to have much strategy. I know he told me a few weeks ago that going 5 rounds wouldn't be an issue, but it kind of looked like maybe he figured he wasn't wanting to go 25 minutes tonight, and he didn't, so he accomplished that. But back in the losing column for him, I don't know. I don't know what you do with Derek Brunson. I feel at 33 years old or so, if he wanted to crack into the top 5 and really in the title mix, now was the time. Now that he hasn't done so, it's Robert Whitaker's time, absolutely. But I don't know where you put a guy like Brunson.
I think you throw Brunson in against Chris Weidman, and you give one of them a chance to get some momentum back, and the other
That's
one
a good point.
just spirals down into oblivion. I mean, I think Chris Weidman at one time would have utterly outclassed Derek Brunson, but Weidman's fall has been spectacular, and Brunson's obviously got the power and the KO streak to show he could beat anybody anytime with that kind of puncher's chance. But yeah, no. But as far as Whitaker, though, I mean, look, I was running through the people above him. Bisping, ironically, is one of the people in the division he might have a better chance with. But Yoel Romero, Luke Rockhold, Jacare Souza, Gegard Mousasi, no way. Whitaker
No,
cannot hang with
no,
any of those cats.
no, definitely not. I mean, I agree. Whitaker, if Whitaker fights Bisping, and he was supposed to last year, I would probably pick Whitaker in that fight. Bisping, I've said it before, I'd probably pick against Bisping for a lot of the top 10 middleweight. But yeah, Whitaker, he would very likely lose to the top 4 that you mentioned there. So he's in a weird spot because I feel he's in a spot now where he's in the title mix. He's probably he should be 1 win away from a title shot, but will he get to that title shot? Probably not, because now he has to go through a guy like Rockhold or Jacare with Romero and Bisping all but confirmed to fight for the title.
Yep.
And I'm
what about
not
Gegard
so sure.
Mousasi? You think Mousasi could be?
That's actually a good one. I think Whitaker Mousasi makes sense. I don't know who I'd pick.
And Mousasi, I know who I would pick. Mousasi would play him alive. It would not even be close.
I think it could be close. I'll disagree, but I would probably pick Mousasi. Just too technical. Whitaker, I don't know. He's technical. He can be, but then at times he lets everything loose. And yes, he does connect, but can he connect on such a smart fighter like Mousasi? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think so, and I don't think he has a fight experience. And this is just like another in a series of endless UFC events. Next Saturday, December 3rd, we've got Demetrius Johnson against TBD, because we don't know who's going to win the reality show to get the shot against Mighty Mouse, with Joseph Benavidez and Henry Cejudo, the coaches, fighting in the co-main event. And that's a much better card than this one. I mean, it's got Jake Ellenberger and George Masvidal, but still, it's not a huge thing. But then you've got Derek Lewis versus Shamil Abdurakhimov. Shabdil, oh my God! I mean, like, this is not going to get ratings. And that card it's got Francis Ngannou against Anthony Hamilton, which is kind of interesting. But then it just falls off a cliff, and the rest of it. And then UFC 206 takes a bullet to the head when Daniel Cormier has to bow out his fight against Anthony Johnson.
But wait, there's another title fight. There's another one.
Well, now they're giving a title to Holloway versus Pettis, but that does not make it a draw just because it's got a belt on it, and it's a good fight. I'm intrigued. I like both those guys. Pettis has actually headlined pay-per-views in the past when he was lightweight champion, but it's not DC versus Anthony Johnson. It's just not. It's not even close.
I feel like I feel like Holloway Pettis being for an interim title. We've always known that interim titles are just a marketing tool to allow the UFC to put a good, solid co-main event, main card fight, whatever you want to say, in the main event slot because a guy gets hurt. And that's exactly interim titles. At least usually they're used when a guy gets hurt, but it's not. Aldo's not hurt. He's ready to go. Well, maybe. I know he kind of has.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the weird thing because the last time, when I went to bed before the holiday, Conor McGregor was the featherweight champ, and now suddenly he's given up the belt, and Jose Aldo is the champ, but Holloway and Pettis are going to fight for the interim title. I mean, that's just like too much to expect casual fans to come up with. But that card with Cerrone versus Matt Brown, Tim Kennedy versus Kelvin Gastelum, Cub Swanson versus Dooho Choi, this Korean Superboy, Nikita Krylov, one of my favorites, against Misha Serkinov. I mean, that's a pretty fun card. It's got John McDessie on it, another guy I like, Mitch Gagnon, a guy a lot of people like, former Bellator champ Zach Wachowski versus Dustin Ortiz. I mean, it's a pretty fun card. You got Drew Dober on there, but it's just like the rest of the year, the UFC is going to limp out the rest of the year, and then 207, you got Ronda Rousey against Amanda Nunes, and that to me is sort of looking like a sacrificial ritual in which the ghost of Ronda Rousey will be exorcised from the UFC. But maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, anything else about tonight's fight, UFC Melbourne?
About tonight's fight. I mean, the opening 3 Fight Pass fights were actually all right. I mean, I don't even know how to pronounce these guys' names, Yao Zukui and Jidna Losa. They actually put on a decent fight. The first 2 rounds I watched, the third I didn't, and the first 2 rounds were fun. Marlon Vera's win over Ningguang Yu, pretty fun performance, of course, kind of changes the momentum, so to speak. Vera starting out strong, kind of losing the momentum in the second, and then coming on strong, nearly finishing Guang Yu in the third. And Jason Knight's win over Dan Hooker was also a fun one, but then from there on, I mean, you did have Ben Wen. That was an okay performance.
Yeah, Gene Herrera came out throwing a flying sidekick that was kind of fun, but sort of petered out. And I do want to say, you're right, that opener between Janelle Lausa making his debut and Yao Zikai, it had momentum shifts, it had asymmetry of styles because Lausa was clearly a boxer and a good one. And Zikai seemed like much more of a well-rounded mixed martial artist, throwing a lot of leg kicks, dominating when he got top position, but a fun fight. Lausa did enough to get the decision. So I guess that's our show. So anything you want to plug, Nick, while I got you on the show?
Just follow me on Twitter at NickUFC. As always, you can check out my writing at Bloody Elbow. As you guys know, my podcast, The MMA Circus, hosted every week with Andrew Lawrence, a guest on every show. We have I did a few interviews today, a couple yesterday, so a lot of great guests coming up on episode 87 on Wednesday. I think that's about it. Nate, I really appreciate you having me here.
Sure, it's fun. It's exciting to watch you work and come along. And I mean, I'm telling you, this kid's a teenager, and he works way harder than most of you guys who think you want to be an MMA writer or whatever. It's like, watch what this kid is doing and do some of that, because he's out there getting interviews and he's churning out content and keeping up with the game. And it's an honor to watch you grow. So it's fun to have you on the show. And follow me. Yeah, sorry, I stomped on your thank you. But, I'm a dick like that. So follow me on Twitter at KidNate. Read me on BloodyElbow.com when I deign to write there. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Eugene will have Knuckle Up tomorrow. We'll have the Care Don't Care preview, the If I Did It, the MMA Vivisection, all this stuff. Heavy hands coming up. So be sure and subscribe to MMANation.com and don't miss any of that. So thanks again, Nick, and we'll see you next time. Adios, MMA aficionados.